So far, I'm 1 for 1 on being correct that you agree with me, and I think I'm about to be 2 for 2 on the fact that you agree with
I
me.
don't think so. I don't think so.
Benjamin Yurosek from Stanford, 6'4", 240 pounds. My man can move. What's the background you got on him before I get into my spiel?
4-star recruit. This is a pretty basic one, Joe. He went to Bakersfield Christian, so he's a California kid, stayed at home. Science, tech, and society major, whatever the heck that means, which is pretty dope.
I saw that.
And
smart. That's what it
yes,
means.
that means he's very smart. His mother played volleyball at Colorado State. His dad played football at Colorado State. He has 4 siblings, pretty basic stuff. So he comes from an athletic family. And I actually saw his high school basketball highlight tape, and it's good, man. It's really good. He was a very good. He was doing like windmill dunks and all that type of stuff. Very good athlete, Benjamin Yurosek in high school.
Ryan, I got to be completely honest with you, man. I really like Benjamin Yurosek. I really, really like Benjamin Yurosek.
Darn it.
I thought that he was a really – you like him too. Exactly. This is my point.
I love Benjamin Yurosek.
Dude, he moves so well. There was one play, I think it was against Washington State, where they gave him an end around.
On a 50-yarder.
You have to give
yards.
To give a tight end an end around,
yeah.
My man's a good athlete. That doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen. And I'm stunned that they didn't try to find more ways to get him the football. I think with the new head coach, I'm blanking on his name, from Sac State, he is going to be very productive this upcoming year because they're going to air the ball out a little bit more. I see as a receiver, gets upfield in a hurry, explodes out of his stance. He is very quick, changes direction very well, provides a massive threat after the catch.
Yes.
And then on top of that, the thing that I always say on here, and I emphasize on this show, if I see physicality on tape, but maybe not dominance, I can get behind you at any position on the field. But for me as a tight end, if your technique isn't great and maybe your angles aren't great, I can at least commit to you developing as a blocker if you show me a willingness and intent. And I think he's really physical as a blocker. He's not that strong. He's not going to drive anyone off the ball. This isn't Darnell Washington. He's not going to completely bury somebody. But I think if he had a little more weight on his butt, he's going to be a pretty good blocker. Extremely well-rounded. I couldn't find a hole that made me pessimistic about this guy. He is very fun to watch.
Joe, I'm so disappointed, man. I'm really, really disappointed. I thought you weren't going to like him, and we were going to have some discourse. I really thought you weren't going to like him.
Why wouldn't I have liked him?
Because he's not the biggest body of all time. He still has development that needs to happen physically. Like, that's not typically your type. It's not typically your type. But my guy is about as good an athlete as you're going to find at the tight end position in college football. I mean, yes, the only 2 guys that are getting end arounds in college football are Brock Bowers and Benjamin Yurosek. That's the only guys. This kid is a legit 4.5 something athlete, in my opinion. He's incredibly explosive. He gets to his top speed in a hurry, which is very, very rare and very unique for a tight end. It's usually guys that are longer, and he's 6'4", 242 pounds. It takes a few steps to get to top speed. This kid, I think explosiveness off the line of scrimmage,
immediate,
is about as good as you're going to see. Explosiveness in and out of breaks. I do think he needs attention to detail as a route runner, but when he sticks his foot in the ground on his top ends and he gets out of his breaks, my guy explodes to open space. He can win after the catch. He can win as a route runner. He can win just by being a really good athlete. I always talk about this. The more ways you can create separation, the better of a football player and the higher I'm going to be on you. And I see that. I see at least 3 different types of ways: as a route runner, as an explosive athlete, and as a above the rim type of player, that I think that this kid can win as a pass receiver. And I agree. I think 2021, very inconsistent as a blocker, very inconsistent, because he's just a guy that's still developing to his frame. I forget what game I was watching this year, though, but it was one of the first reps of the game. He absolutely crumbled a defensive end. I was like, oh, he's got a little more upside as a blocker than maybe I originally anticipated. Because I like this kid in 2021, because I remember seeing him against Notre Dame for the first time, and he had a long touchdown catch against Notre Dame. I'm like, who the heck is 84? Like, who's that kid? Stanford has been a dumpster fire. He's still been relatively very productive, not quite as productive as he was in 2021, but if you watch this offense this last year for Stanford, it was terrible. It was awful. And it was a coaching staff that was on its way out, an immobile quarterback who couldn't really win outside of structure at all. with Troy Taylor coming in, who is the Sac State head coach that you were talking
Yes,
about.
that's who it is.
He had Marshall Martin as his tight end at Sac State, who was a very athletic, undersized tight end that was incredibly productive. Almost had 1,000 yards last year for Sacramento State. Benjamin Yurosek, even if Stanford isn't very good in 2023, which I don't think they're going to be, I think they're going to be a little bit of a bad football team. Benjamin Yurosek's going to put up some numbers, sir. They're going to be able to utilize him incredibly well. I think this is one of the best draft-eligible tight ends in 2023 or 2024 NFL draft, because I see the upside as a pass receiver, and I think he's going to give you enough in the run game when all is said and done to be able to keep him on the field on running situations as well. I'm a big fan of him. I was hoping you wouldn't be, so I can go under the radar a little bit, but my guy is very good football player. Yes.
Hell no. I'm going to be pumping this guy up for the whole cycle. I was so juiced. It was one of those guys where it was almost a slow burn. Like you're watching the first couple plays and you're like, oh, this guy's pretty good. And they're just like, oh, okay. He's got that in him. He can do that. Like, damn, like he gets the football and you're just watching the dynamic playmaking ability that he provides. Look, everybody knows who follows the YouTube channel that I'm not a Dalton Kincaid hater, but I'm a Dalton Kincaid truther.
Yes.
I think that Yurosek is the guy that everybody was trying to make Dalton Kincaid out to be. I think that Dalton Kincaid is fine. I think that he is going to be productive. I didn't see first round tight end on his tape. I see that capability to be a late first round pick out of Benjamin Yurosek because I think he's a better route runner and I think he has better hands than Dalton Kincaid, which nobody wanted to admit last cycle. And he's a better blocker, which is very, very important.
You want to illustrate how bad the Stanford offense was last year, Joe? For this kid that I believe is going to be a 4.5 something athlete, and I think that he is one of the better athletes at tight end that I've actually evaluated for the last few years. He averaged 9.1 yards a catch last year on 49 receptions. They couldn't get him the football, man. They couldn't get him in the football in creative ways. The year before, he averaged 15.3 yards a catch, which is a great number. And you lost 6 yards per catch from one year to the next. Stanford was an absolute dumpster fire this year. But this kid is a good football player, man. He's really good. I'm in on him. I think that he fits the mold of what people tried to make Dalton Kincaid. I agree, Joe. I think that Kincaid's different because Kincaid's a little bit better at the catch point, winning above the rim than this kid is. But this kid is a better athlete, in my opinion, than Dalton. And I think that he's going to be able to separate better than Dalton Kincaid. So, yes, all the way in on Benjamin Yurosek. If he takes a step forward, I think this kid could be a top 50 pick. Like, I think he has that type of upside.
Yeah, that's where I graded him out as a top 50 pick. And I also just want to add in there.
We're agreeing way too much on the show. We're agreeing way too much on the show, man. I don't like this.
Hey, man. It means that and this is very common, what's the word I'm looking for? Criticism of the show is that we're both very pompous, but we're just both really good evaluators. You've gotten me into watching more and more film, and we had a full cycle. And I think I figured out how to do this, man. I think that you've taught me well. Let's put it that way. You've taught me well. So I'm taking a lot of the things that you've taught me and I'm bringing it to the table.
Oh, now you're pumping me up.
Proud father moment for you.
Yes, now you're pumping me up, man. Yeah.
But final thought though on Yurosek, though, I thought it was just really frustrating watching the fact that they asked him to block so much. Like I don't know why you don't take this guy and say line him up in the slot. Let's just get him in space. Let's attack defenses vertically. And I think that Troy Taylor, as a creative offensive mind, is going to get him the ball that way.
I don't fault everything that happened with Stanford to David Shaw because I think that Stanford just generally does not support football and they just don't care as like an organization, which is just – I don't think that David Shaw had the full support all the time. That being said, you didn't utilize Benjamin Yurosek the best way you could, and then they had two stud offensive tackles as far as looking the part and being totally talented, and they couldn't develop either one. So Walter Rouse is now at Oklahoma, and Miles Hinton is at Michigan, and they just could not figure it out with either one of those guys. So, yeah, offensive development and utilization has just not been good over the last couple of years. It just has not been.
No. Good note to wrap us up on. I think our next show will be our tight end rankings. At Joe DeLeone, at Rising Draft. We'll be back with more. Hit that subscribe button. I just want to tell you folks about an exciting new partnership that we have with this channel with Underdog Fantasy. Ever since I joined, I've been having so much fun. There are so many different exciting games that make watching games during the offseason more exciting. I'm not the biggest basketball fan, but it has made it way more entertaining since I found Underdog Fantasy. And my favorite game to play so far, which I think you should try out, is Pick'em. It is so easy to play. Just pick higher or lower on your favorite player's stats, and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. Underdog keeps it simple with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. Pick between 2 and 5 players to fill out your Pick'em slip, get every pick right, and take home some cold hard cash. Use code HACK, H-A-C-K, HACK, like the name of this channel. Use code HACK to get your first deposit doubled up to $100 by Underdog. Go sign up. You won't regret it. You're going to have a blast. Check out Underdog Fantasy. I also want to tell you folks about our other recurring sponsor that we have on this channel, that being BetOnline, betonline.ag, which has all the updated odds, news, and anything for sports betting. It's my go-to source for when I want to be betting specifically on games. I love betting on college basketball or the NBA, especially, again, during the offseason. Always looking for more fun ways to be focused in on some of these other sports. It's betonline.ag and use promo code BELIEVE50. It's promo code BELIEVE50 to get 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts.